So I went down to the beach and I built a sandcastle. And as I'm digging the holes for the sandcastle, I made a big deep moat and everything. I made sure it was far enough away from the shore so that the waves didn't just wash it away, right? It was fairly tall, but it had large sides, to keep predators out, if you will. And as I'm digging this hole, which I'm sure it looked kind of silly, a 30-year-old building a sandcastle, but as I'm digging the moat out, a man maybe a few years older than me walked over and asked, "What are you doing?" So I said, "Well, I'm building a sandcastle. What's it look like I'm doing?" And he just kind of sat there and watched for a while, just completely puzzled why this grown man was building a sandcastle. And as he walked away, I'm sure he was asking himself, what's the point? Because I myself, after I finish and I stand back and look at what I've done, even as much fun as I have just building the sandcastle with no particular purpose in mind, I enjoy it and everything, but at the end I do have to ask myself, what's the point? It's going to be washed away when the tide comes in. It might be trampled on when someone walks on it. But the sandcastle, at some point, I'm sure if I go back there today, there might be remnants of it, but it's probably gone. And so I have to ask the question, what's the point? The writer of Ecclesiastes was asking the same question. As he looked at his life, he said, what's the point? He wrote it a little bit more eloquently than I do, as he said, vanity of vanity. Everything is vanity. A better translation of that is like everything is like smoke. The Hebrew word hebel, it has several different meanings to it. And so to translate it as vanity doesn't quite capture the essence of it. It's more like smoke. Everything is like smoke. As you think about smoke, how many of you like campfires? Okay, a few of you. As you think about the smoke from a campfire, or maybe even the smoke from a candle, you know that it's useful in keeping mosquitoes away, right? When it's really buggy and there's lots of smoke from the campfire, it keeps some of the insects away. So smoke can be useful. On the other hand, if the smoke is always constantly blowing in your eyes, like it sort of is now, and your eyes are watering, it can be kind of offensive. It can be kind of upsetting, right? So smoke can be helpful, useful in keeping the bugs away. It can be sort of offensive. Smoke can also be pleasing. I know last night I grilled, and it was wonderful smelling the fruits and vegetables cooking on the grill. It smelled delicious. It was pleasing. So smoke can be pleasing to us. It can be offensive. It can be useful. But in the end, it's smoke. We can't really capture it. It's transitory. It's not something stable that we can take hold of. That's what the Hebrew word habel means. So when Ecclesiastes translates it as everything is like vanity, it's more like everything is like smoke. But in the end, when we look at life and we see everything is like smoke, we again ask ourselves, what's the point? Maybe we look at our own life. We try so hard to stay healthy, and then we get sick, or we lose track of staying healthy, and we say, everything's like smoke. What's the point? Maybe we try really hard at our job, but There's those days when we come home and we feel like a failure. Maybe it's those days that we say, what's the point? Everything's like smoke anyways. We look around at our world and we ask, what's the point? What's the point as we see the smoke drift up? We might even see it drift up towards the cross. And then we take a long look at the cross and we remember that event when our God came into this world to show us the point of things, but was pointlessly put to death, was pointlessly humiliated and murdered on a cross and died. And we might stop and ask, what's the point? Until we realize at the center of that cross is our God. At the center of that cross is our God showing us we are loved. As we look around at our world, there's still plenty of moments that we might look around and say, what's the point? Perhaps if we look at the movement known as Black Lives Matter, and we see all the violence, we see the disruption of relationships, we ask, what is the point? Until we realize there's a sacredness about life. And the people part of that movement are trying to show each of us that all life is sacred, all life is special. There is a point. Or maybe we look at the mass shootings or the terrorism that's happening all across the world, right here in the United States. And we see all these precautions taking place, and we ask, what's the point? Until we stop and realize at the center of all of that chaos is a protection of life, is seeking to make life holy. And maybe, if you're anything like me, and you turn on the radio or the news, and you see the presidential race happening, and you look at it and you see people stooping to their lowest level, and you ask, what is the point? Can I get an amen? But in the end, the point is our future. The point is the future of America. The point is our future and the future that God has in store for us. Every time we look at our world and we ask that question, what's the point? It's almost like looking at a candle. As it goes out and the smoke drifts up, we know that at the heart of that darkness, at the heart of that pointless smoke, is a flame that can remind us of the light of Christ. When we look around at our world and we ask what the point is, I hope and pray we may also see our God at work. Amen.